And well, since time is not our best friend right now, we're going to delve right into the caregiver panel. And I know the team is ready and really, really ready to kick it off. So we have 45 minutes for the caregiver panel. We have Fatu Sonkor, who's a lead caregiver at Karasu Home Care and a student nurse at Edgewood College. Sarah Alvarado, who's a family caregiver and president at Alvarado Real Estate. Will Clifton, museum nerd at Chazen Museum and family caregiver. If you haven't been to the Chazen Museum, you really should. It's one of the most beautiful places in Madison. I'll just say that. Karitha Cash, receptionist at Reinhardt Bonner and family caregiver. Over to you, ma'am. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Bidwell, and I've been fortunate enough to be part of the planning committee and also on the All Things Alzheimer's team and board. So such a privilege. One thing that I want to share is I don't have any family member with Alzheimer's dementia, and I'll say yet. But I have cared for family members with heart disease, stroke, cancer, and a lot of other things. You're still vulnerable. But one thing, as we get into our panel today, I don't know if I can share a screen or not, but we'll just highlight that Fatu had mentioned that in the US, there's 67.5 million families acting as caregivers. And in 2019, there were a little over 328 million people in the US. So that's pretty much 1 in 5 of the people. If you walk down the street and you see 4 people, either they or you are helping a family member with caregiving. So 4 in 5 caregivers do also manage household tasks. 58% of them who are caregivers are women, 42% are men. A fifth of them, 20%, are 65 years old or older. So individuals who thought they would be in a retirement time frame in their life. A lot of them, about a little over a third, are caring for a parent or an in-law or sibling impacted. And a big piece of that is tied to dementia. So one thing we're learning is there's science and then there's the emotional personal piece behind this. What I heard in the last presentation from Patricia Egan was the view we take, and it's different whether we're viewing our care for a family member based on our experience or what's right for them. So emotions are out there, they're vulnerable emotions, and we have 4 individuals on our panel. So I'm delighted to introduce them to you and let them share a little bit about their role and with the broader group. So Fatu Sonko, could you please join?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fatu Sanko, the lead caregiver at Kerisu Home Care and also a student nurse at Edgewood College. And thank you all for being here with us today. We'll dive into my caregiving journey. I started working as a caregiver 2016 when I first moved to the United States. I do caregiving because it is a very rewarding job. It is noble, and also because I love to take care of people that are in need of help. Uh, it is a job where I have the opportunity to interact one-on-one with my clients to get to know them better and make difference in their lives. Caregiving is very important to me. It is not, it is a job where you help to make difference in people's life, help them with their ADLs, but not just that. It is more than helping people with their personal case and cleaning their houses. It is about building a healthy relationship with the people that you care for and their family members, because the family members rely on you, and the care recipients to rely on you. So the information, the help building that healthy relationship with the family members and the care recipients make our work easier and make it easier for for the families too, because the clients see us every single day, or for some more, for the most part of the day. So the family rely on us because they're far from their loved ones, and they they're far away from their loved ones, and we're the people that see their loved ones every day. So give having to give that help, having to help those clients require to have a healthy relationship with them. We also communicate with care team, the patient's care team, on priority changes of the changes that is concerning the client's well-being. So us as professional caregivers, before we go into our client's house, we make sure that we have all the information that is necessary in order to take care of our clients. One way that we get the information is either from um, the case managers or the family members, so that we can plan ahead of time when we visited, and fulfill all the needs that our clients need. In an emergency situation where we cannot, where the client is not our primary recipient, what we do is we plan ahead of time mentally. So this way we plan that anything can happen. It's either we find a very sweet old lady there, or we have somebody that have behavioral issue and the person is in denial of help. What we do in those difficult situations is step back, rethink, and give space to our space to that person, and come back with a different strategy on how to take care of that person and provide the best care that they need in that situation. We don't leave them that like that. We step back, give them a break, and come back with another strategies to go start from there. Sometimes our clients have their difficult moments where they say things out of anger or desperation. Those clients are very sweet clients, but sometimes they feel like that they're burden on us. They're making our lives difficult. They're not worth living. In those kind of situations, what we do is comfort our client, tell them that we're here for you people. We're here for you. You're not a burden for us. You are not a burden on us. And listen to them attentively, that you're worth listening to. You, you know, so yeah, that's what we do in those kind of situations. We make sure that before we leave, uh, our client is in a very safe situation before we leave their their homes, regardless of how many hours you have. Whether your hours is 2 hours and we have to spend 3 hours, but we have to make sure that you are left in a very safe environment because our client safety is our number one priority. Um, Prior to COVID, we have challenges as caregivers, but this COVID has affected us tremendously. One of the ways that it affects us is we can no longer interact with our client how we wanted to and how we were doing it before COVID, because we can no longer hug our clients, dance with them as we do, visit their neighbors that they would like to visit prior to COVID. So I personally like to hug my clients and comfort them, but because COVID has taken that away from me, I cannot do it anymore. And my my care recipients that Alzheimer patients do not understand that. They always want to hug me, but it is the right thing to avoid hugging in order to not to prevent the spread of the virus. And it is very hard on us as caregivers because we cannot show our love anymore with the hugs and the holding hands and dancing that we do make them feel love is very challenging for us. Now is a very challenging situation for everybody, but much especially for us as caregivers. um, so not only COVID is a challenge for us, but another challenge that we have as caregivers is when our clients passed away, when they leave us for eternity. We cannot do anything when they go because um, it is so hard for us to accept that they're gone. We we always in a denial that they're gone. We struggle to accept that they're no longer with us. So that is a very difficult part of our job as caregivers, and we cannot do anything to have that. All we do is to cry and grieve with the family members on the loss of our loved one. A little tip for my caregiver friends and my colleagues in the caregiving is to take care of ourselves mentally and physically in order to provide the best care possible care. Using proper body mechanics, exercise, and eating is very important to prevent caregiver breakout, to prevent caregiver burnout. And thank you all for being here with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ratu. Sarah Alvarado, can you join us?
Yes, thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. So my name is Sarah Alvarado, and I am a family member, I guess. So I don't have the expertise, and I haven't studied in the research arena, and I haven't worked in the Alzheimer's world. My experience is really based on what I've gone through within our family. So my grandfather had Lewy body, and he had Lewy body when he was older. I would say in his 80s. And then and that's on my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and she was also in her 80s when she passed. And my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when she was 68. She was officially diagnosed at 68. We saw signs when she was around 65. She actually noticed it first and let me and my sister know that she was struggling with some memory issues. And my uncle, her brother, has Lewy body. So there's a lot of Alzheimer's in my family, and it completely freaks me out. My experience with my mother has been challenging, and I guess sometimes it's I wouldn't I wouldn't use the word rewarding. We have found moments of lightness and love and compassion within our relationship and within the greater community. So being able to have a greater community and people who really understand what it's like and have the professional understanding and opinions and tips and tricks, like it's been really, really helpful. So I don't know how we're going to navigate questions. I can just leave it at that in terms of introducing myself. And I will be available for answering whatever other questions come up.
Thanks, Sarah. And we're going to take some questions in the chat, and I also have some others, but did not want to funnel those until everyone got to share their story. So one thing we did hear yesterday, I think it was Sarah, was how dimensional experiences with individuals comes in. So dancing and music, and I know that's something you seem to always relish and enjoy with your mom. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And our next caregiver, Will Clifton. Will, can you join us?
Hello. I'm also I've been a family caregiver. And I want to qualify it first by saying my lived experience of this with my caregiving with my parents is definitely coming from a position of privilege with the access that I have had. And here's the context for that. Both of my parents were connected to the UW-Madison campus. My mother took the minutes for the Board of Regents back in the 1950s while my father was in graduate school. And my father ended up being a scientist in human oncology, radiation biology for 40 years, and emeritus professor. Sadly, both of them, I discovered while on a driving trip with them back in 2013, both were on their journey with dementia, and I soon discovered that my father had been hiding my mother's Alzheimer's for a few years. I did not know that it was happening until his own issue of dementia started to show up in his life as well. And I'm married to a saint, another person who worked at the UW. She and I realized that to meet both of their needs together, we sold our house. I stepped out of my work in the Office for Equity and Diversity here on the UW-Madison campus, and we moved in with my parents full-time, and we're caring for them. And so while my wife stayed working on campus, I became the full-time caregiver for both of my parents. That lasted until really until the fall of 2016, when one day I was bathing my mom, helping her shower, and my father announced he was going to go for a walk at the same time. And it was that moment where I just realized the danger of my father going out of the house alone, and the danger of my mother in the state that she was in as I was caring for her. And I said, I can't do this. Because it was both of them at the same time. Again, privilege. My parents we were able to set up a situation where my parents ended up in memory care, and I then took on the role of being an advocate for them and working very closely with the caregivers, and everything that Fatu just spoke to about the loving care, working very closely with full-time caregivers. That was such an essential thing. And so I also have the understanding of how to do this as a team and what that means. It does not go away, clearly, if indeed the person you're caring for goes into memory care. Advocacy is so important in that role, all the way to their passing. And My mother passed last year and it was identified as Alzheimer's, and my father passed this summer and it was also identified as Alzheimer's. So I understand, Sarah, your thoughts on this. I am doing everything I possibly can around everything that we've been hearing about one's own self-care, because if I can avoid this, you know, prevention and or delay, I'm doing everything that's been advised. And I'm trying to advocate for that for other caregivers as well. And I'll stop for now for that.
And will your pictures each morning of the sunrise help everyone smile? So thank you so much for sharing that.
That's
All
there.
right. Such personal stories everyone has. And I think that's one of the unique things. Well, maybe not unique, but it's one of the real things we're hearing as we walk through these couple of days. So our last caregiver on the panel is Caretha Cash. And Caretha, can you join us?
Yes. Can you see me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
This is the first time I'm doing this, so please bear with me. Good afternoon, and my name is Caretha Cash. I would like to thank Fatu and Barbara McKinney for inviting me to participate in the caregiving panel. Kudos to Bintu for the marvelous job she's done as MC yesterday. This has been a very educational summit to me with very impressive presenters, so I congratulate the planning committee also on a well-executed Aging Well Summit. My condolences to Will on your loss. Fatu, you did an amazing job explaining your duties as a caregiver in a facility. And before I go any further, I want to share a picture of my mother. She is the one with whom I have the Alzheimer's journey. And this is my father, Gunnery Sergeant John W. Cash, in the U.S. Marine Corps. My mother was an educator. I have two brothers. One is a year under me and one is 14 years younger. I'm employed by Reinhardt Berner Law Firm, and I've been with them for 25 years, working in different locations and holding different positions. I am currently the receptionist in the Madison office. And it's been a blessing to work with an organization that values you and understands life happens. I was able to transfer from Milwaukee to the Madison office when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I do not have children and I'm not married. It made me the perfect person to be my mother's legal guardian, primary caregiver, jointly with my father. I went to the facility where she was staying every day, including weekends. So when you talk about self-care, yes, that's very important. I also want to say right here that each person's journey is unique, and to remember it's a labor of love. A heavy burden was lifted from me yesterday when I heard keynote speaker Gina Green Harris say, "My personal best is good enough." And to that, I want to add, hindsight is 2020. And as I started reflecting on what I wanted to share today, along with the memories, emotions started welling up inside, because no matter how long your mother has been gone, my mother passed in 2007, so she's been gone 13 years. You miss her and you never stop feeling that you could do better. She was a Christian woman born in rural South Carolina. She and my dad were married for 55 years. Education was her passion. She received her master's from the University of Indiana. Many of her coworkers and parents of children from our church and school will share how she tutored children outside of school, feeding mothers when they came to pick their children up after work. She participated in after-school programs, and when she was no longer able to teach, she became a liaison between parents and the schools. Alzheimer's is a terrible disease. She was officially diagnosed in 2003 at the age of 72, and she passed in 2007. It was an intense 4 years, and afterwards, I was not the same. My brother reminded me that when the journey started, I had dreadlocks down my back. And at the end of the journey, I cut all my hair off because it was such an experience. So you're never the same when you have an interaction with Alzheimer's and you're a caregiver. I learned to appreciate good days, to pray before visiting. I utilized the support group for children of parents with Alzheimer's, which Mary Rhines of the Alzheimer's Association facilitated. As mom's medications increased, I purchased and utilized a textbook on geriatric medications she was being given. I have no medical background. So but I wanted to understand what she was receiving. When my mother's care was compromised by an assisted living facility, I contacted and worked with the state ombudsman's office, and my brothers were supportive, but they were not directly involved in her care. However, my father, being a career Marine who fought in several wars, was trained to seek out weaknesses and destroy them. So he had PTSD, and if you know anything about PTSD, you know that it and Alzheimer's cannot coexist. I also had the privilege of being able to put my mother in a facility at that time because I was afraid I would lose both of my parents. My youngest brother is one of my biggest encouragers, even to this day. He would go toe to toe with Dad during the journey when my father had objections to how I was handling Mom's care. My takeaway and what I'd like to share with each of you is that God knows the plans He has for us, not to harm us, but to give us hope in the future, which is Jeremiah 29:11. My faith was instrumental in guiding me through each day. I was working. My church family was very supportive and willing to help in any way when I asked. Take advantage of the help and assistance that's out there. I was blessed to be able to use FMLA, Family and Medical Leave Act, when I was caregiving for my mother as the primary caregiver. My employer's EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, was very helpful. I was able to receive counseling, which helped me navigate some of the challenges of facilities and dealing with Alzheimer's and the medical issues, as well as the Alzheimer's Association. You are your loved one's advocate. Be strong and fearless. I appreciated the caregivers in the facilities who were compassionate, like Fatu stated, and realized that if my mother wouldn't cooperate the first time you ask her, go away and come back later, maybe she would have changed her mind. A friend shared with me how a CNA at the facility would call and say, your mom is having a good day. She's very lucid. You might want to come and visit her. You know, things like that matter, because at one facility, I just happened to overhear that when I wasn't there, sometimes my mother would be calling my name and looking for me. I never knew that. You know, these are things that you don't know unless the caregivers at the facility share it with you. They're there with them all the time. I appreciated those who took care of my mother and had the strength to tell me that when they were washing her one evening, her private parts were sore. And I was able to address that concern immediately, but I wouldn't have known if they wouldn't have spoken up. It is a journey, and be careful what you say around them. Even if they are not responsive all the time, they still hear and they come and go. My mother was always present, but as time passed, she didn't always speak. Sometimes when I would speak to her, the mother would speak back. So I knew she was hearing me, you know. When I prayed with her, she came back. This journey doesn't last forever, and one day it will be over. But be patient with your loved ones and be patient with yourself. Do take time, whether just 5 minutes or a day, for self-care. I sang in my choir, and when I take my mom to church, she saw me there. And I have the memory of seeing her smile, knowing that she had her faith encouraged, even though I had to return her to the facility. And I'd like to, in closing, share some of my mother's sayings that encouraged me and still do. If you're ever feeling down, go do something for somebody else. Don't ever intentionally hurt anyone. And she always said, I didn't raise any quitters. And if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And finally, even when she was sick, one of her favorite sayings, and she never forgot it, is God is good. And my response to that is, yes, he is. Thank you.
All the time.
All the time.
Thank you to our 4 caregivers, all with personal stories and personal paths. One thing that I wanted to share is somebody who has inspired me for years is Maya Angelou. And one of the phrases I hear from her is, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So this conference is about learning and discovery. And one thing that we'll continue to hear throughout the balance of the summit is reach out if you don't know and get educated, and people will reach back to you. There is a compassion, there is a kindness in our community, and there is a lot of science and emotion and connectiveness, even during COVID, that people want to provide for one another. So I've been privileged to be on the All Things Alzheimer's board with Will Clifton over the past couple of years, and Sarah Alvarado now. And the need is big, and it will only grow. So, when you think 1 in 5, that's a pretty high number, but we can continue to learn and grow and help one another. So thank you, caregiver panel. I'm honored to have connected with you all, and I'll share it and turn it back to Bintu.
Thank you so very much, Catherine. We also wanted to open the floor a little bit for questions. So feel free to just open your mic and then ask the questions that you have, or if you just want to share, because there's been a lot of sharing going on today, and it's inspiring, it's beautiful. And I just want to remind everyone, as we kept listening, that there are resources in the community, there are resources at your workplace, there's a community of people willing to support you. So find out who those support systems are, leverage them, and leverage those resources and those support, because you cannot do it all alone. We're a community for a reason. We should be able to lean on each other in times of need. So always remember that there are people who would be willing to support you when the need arises. Like Catherine just said, reach out, get educated, and leverage your resources. So I'll leave it on for a little bit. If anybody has questions.
I have
I have a comment. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I had more of a comment. I loved when Caritha said, be strong and fearless as an advocate, because I, like Will, I think I kind of felt that when my mom was moving into a memory care facility that, oh, phew, you know, the worries would go away. And it's a different set of worries. And you really have to be present there. And I just was so inspired by Fatu's story, because I depend on the caregivers there so much, who are so amazing and will call me not just when there's a problem, but also when something cute happens that my mom did or said, or they have a nice picture they can send me. But I mean, they're the glue that holds that place together, because frankly, some of the administrative people have come and gone in the several years that my mom has lived there. But there's this core of amazing, kind, compassionate people like Fatu that are very invested and love the people that they're taking care of. And it just shows through. And I'm blown away every day with how wonderful they are. And I also related to what Sarah said about how this all terrifies her, because my great grandmother, my grandmother, my mom, and my aunt all had Alzheimer's or have Alzheimer's. So I'm always trying to educate myself and, you know, take good care of myself and eat right and do yoga and meditate and get out in nature and just anything I can think of to, because this is not a journey any of us signed up for or would want to repeat ourselves. So, but thank you so much. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you, Debbie. I wanted to share a couple of things that helped me a lot in the beginning. One was really acknowledging like where my mom was at and doing, I'd listened to a podcast about improv and how like one of the examples was the Alzheimer's patient was looking out the window and was like, oh my gosh, look at the monkeys. And they're playing in the trees. And the person came over and was like, oh, wow, look at that one. And like started improving with their mom. And that really helped me a lot, just to play with my mom. My mom has the kind of Alzheimer's where she's more playful and joyful, and you can see her regressing in age to childlike behavior versus the angry one that is a little different. And I know that they can come and go at different times. But so that has been really fun for me. But then I also would get frustrated when people wouldn't play with her, like when they would like correct her. And so for me to be able to explain that to family members, and that is what I wish would have been different. Like when we were out in public, I wish people would just allow her to repeat questions. It's an interesting way when someone knows that she had Alzheimer's and when someone didn't, and how kind people are when they know, because they have these little cards that you can give out, like their business size cards. And so I took her to Las Vegas for a week and I would give them out to people, and it was like so many people were so nice, but if I didn't have an opportunity to, and it was a wait staff, like they would get so irritated with her. And that was just a really interesting experience. And one of the reasons I really appreciate the program, I'm not sure who puts it on, that teaches businesses and workplaces to become like certified. So I've even heard of places that have a purple table, like when you walk into a restaurant, you can ask for a purple table, which that would be super helpful if that was more, because restaurants are loud. So there's all these little things that I learned. And the only other one thing I want to say is my ability to experience gratitude and sorrow at the same time. I would feel like I would have to be angry a lot, but there were times when I was so grateful that I had the time I had with my mother. Like I'm 45 and I'm losing her. Some people lose their mothers when they're 20, right? So like I could hold both the sorrow and the gratitude. And that has been a really helpful practice for me, because it's not either or. We are super complex, and Alzheimer's is really complex too, which also is the same as I was really upset with my dad when he decided it was time for her to go into a facility. And at the same time, I totally understood why it needed to happen and where he was coming from, but to acknowledge the both. And I guess I just want to share that with people who are going through it, because that has been really helpful for me. I'll be quiet now.
Catherine, there's a question in the chat. It says, how did you get connected to the resources in the community?
I started with the Alzheimer's Association. They do presentations in the community many times, and I would attend a community and get more information, or doing the walk. Once my mother had the diagnosis, I walked and I would meet people there. And that's actually how I met Fatu Cisse, was at one of the walks. It was awesome. And to be able to reconnect with her years later is, a blessing. But yeah, start with the Alzheimer's Association.
So my first contact was because of the location of it nearby where I lived at the time. Was the when they were on Sheboygan, and now they're on University Avenue, the Alzheimer's Dementia Alliance, and realized right away what a great resource, and had a wonderful conversation back then. It was Charlie Daniels and what Barbara McKinney is doing now. Hey, and really great. I mean, we have a wealth of resources, as we're acknowledging and seeing here in Madison, here in the greater Dane County area. We are very fortunate. We're very blessed to have all of this for us. And as we're all saying, please take advantage of these things. I also want to add, the Aging and Disabilities Resource Center is a phenomenal resource as well. And connected to what Sarah brought up, I went through the training that Joy Schmidt put on, and Bonnie had put on about how to create a dementia-friendly community and resources, and have done this where I work at the Chazen Museum of Art here on the UW-Madison campus, is now a dementia-friendly museum. And I'm now, and come February, with the UW-Madison Police and security are going to become dementia friendly. And my dream, though I haven't told them yet, is I would love the UW-Madison campus to be a dementia friendly campus. I mean, think of all the people that we know. Sadly, what is it now? 1 out of 2 after age 85 will have some form of dementia. This is in our lives. This is our community. And so our communities need to be dementia friendly. And so there are things that we can do as well, volunteer. Speaking for myself, volunteering for the research, everything that Ms. Fabu Carter talked about earlier today too. Get involved in the research. And I know the communities with the greatest needs, the need for participants is all the greater. It can't just be reflected of a bunch of white folks. We don't reflect all the needs of the participants and the needs of the community. So that is so terribly important too. If you can, that would be fantastic for and across communities.
Hi, this is Rosalind Thibodeau Goodall, and I have thoroughly enjoyed today's summit. I'm talking to you from Shreveport, Louisiana, where I care for my 93-year-old mother, who, thank God, does not have Alzheimer's, but I've had 8 family members stricken with Alzheimer's since 1978. My dad's sister had it for 20 years. My mother's sister, who passed away 6 years ago, had it for 10. And in between there were aunts and uncles and cousins. So we know that Alzheimer's affects African Americans at a 2 times greater incident, and Hispanics, research proves, at a 1.5 times greater incident. So Fatu knows that for the past 9 years, I've produced an Alzheimer's and Caregiver Symposium here in my hometown, of Shreveport, Louisiana. It started out being African Americans and Alzheimer's, but because the audience became more diverse, I just called it Alzheimer's and Caregiver Symposium, and now it's known as Hopeful. So I just want to commend the planning committee for doing a great job. This has been wonderful. I've enjoyed it. I helped my mother while I was working. My husband and I live in Dallas, actually. He's back at home. I'm here. I'm an only child. And, you know, I was helping my mother care for her sister who had vascular dementia, and my great aunt, my grandmother's sister, who had Sundowner syndrome at the same time. And mama was in her 80s at the time. So you can imagine what that was like. One of them lived in a facility, one of them lived at home. So I just want to commend again Fatu and the planning committee for putting this summit on. It's very important that we share information and do our best to, you know, promote these kinds of programs that can benefit one another, because we, you know, oftentimes we think that we're in this alone, but we're not. But because the journey is so restrictive, you know, we don't have time to think about all the other people who might be sharing the journey. So again, kudos to you. You know, they call me the Alzheimer's lady because that's all I talk about is Alzheimer's, but it's a mantle. You know, I wear the moniker with pride. So again, God bless all of you. Will, you know, you were the good son. So thank you for everything that you did to care for your folks. And I know there are others on the line who have had similar stories. So kudos to everybody. God bless you. And let's keep helping one another.
Well, if we don't have any other comment or question, we would head on to the next and final part of the today's summit, the 2-day summit actually.